Hi, my dear friends. Last year I had an amusing experience. I was valuing the papers of BEd students, and there was a question. Write a paragraph on the difference between conservative education and liberal education. Unfortunately, most of the candidates were not able to answer that question. After the examination, most of the BEd students had complained that it was an out of syllabus question. But the matter is that really it was not an out of syllabus question. It hadn't been. But students were listening to the terms such as conservative education and liberal education at first time in their life. In BEd syllabus, actually schools of philosophies such as idealism, naturalism, pragmatism, humanism, and existentialism are often included. So they know what idealism is. They know what idealistic education is. They know what naturalistic education is. They know what pragmatistic education is. But most of the students do not know what conservative education is and what liberal education is. Actually, this is one of the problems faced by the present educational system, especially in India, because we are giving importance or focus to some items discussed inside the classroom. We do not provide any opportunity for learning to know. That means self-interpretation and analyzing by the students. Teachers just go to the classroom and they discuss something and they give some notes to the students, and the students will be answering the questions in the examinations only if there are some terms which have so far been discussed inside the classroom. So this is what happened in the case of the question which I mentioned earlier: conservative education and liberal education. Actually, a person who has got thorough idea on idealistic views of education and the educational views of naturalism, pragmatism, humanism and existentialism, I mean some modern philosophies, they can without any difficulty tell or explain what conservative education and what liberal education is. Actually, idealism is the conservative educational, or idealistic education is the conservative system of education, because idealism gives much importance to the spiritual aspects of education. So they believe that the traditional aspects, the traditional beliefs, the traditional culture should be cultivated or offered to the students. They do not promote any sort of freedom for students, because according to them, the most important aim of education is to create some well-disciplined, ideal citizens. So they believe that if you are giving much freedom to your students, then you cannot create ideal citizens. Then if you are not able to create ideal citizens by making use of your educational system, you will not be building a welfare society. So idealistic educational system never gives any sort of freedom, and they believe that direct moral instruction should be there in educational institutions. So moreover, they give much importance to teachers. They promote teacher-centered classrooms. They believe that teachers should be an all-rounder. Teachers should be a person who would keep all the values in his personal as well as professional life. So he should be a role model for the students, and students should imitate the activities of teachers and other grown-up people to become ideal citizens. So they keep the most traditional concepts of education. Actually, idealism is known as the oldest school of philosophy, and it gives no attention to any sort of deviation from it does not allow any sort of deviation from the traditional methods of education. So they promote the traditional teacher-centered educational system, and they promote lecture method, the traditional method of teaching. Then they promote restricted freedom for students. So idealism is actually idealistic educational system is conservative educational system. But if you think about naturalism, pragmatism, humanism, and existentialism, you would see that these are some liberal educational these schools of philosophy promote some liberal educational system. First you look at naturalism. Naturalism was a school of philosophy which came into existence as a rebellious action against idealism. Jean-Jacques Rousseau is known as the apostle of naturalism. Once he told, break the walls, burn the books, break the walls, and throw the child into the bounty of nature. And in this single quotation, you can see the whole meaning of naturalism. According to naturalism, the most important aim of education is not social welfare. The most important aim of education is self-actualization of an individual and the all-round development of an individual. And they believe that material pleasure of an individual is important rather than the spiritual satisfaction. So they believe that there is no need for sacrificing one's own interest, material pleasure, for the sake of something invisible called spiritual satisfaction. So they give more importance to matter. They give more importance to material world. And they believe that the important function of education is natural development of an individual. So if a person has to have natural development, there should not be any sort of external force or pressure. So naturalism promotes complete freedom for students, and this is something against the conservative educational concept of idealism. They promote complete freedom. According to them, there should not be any sort of restrictions. Students should be allowed to do anything. They promote a sort of discipline called discipline through natural consequences. According to this concept, there is no need for imposing anything on the children. Let them know, or let them decide or determine their own discipline on the basis of the after effects of their own actions. If they are doing something and if they are facing some undesirable reaction or response, or some pathetic or painful experience, then they would withdraw themselves from such activities. So no other person should tell, do this, don't do this, like that. But children themselves should determine their discipline as a result of their own actions, as a result of the consequences of their own actions. So naturalism does not give any attention, any regard to the traditional educational methods, and they promote some child-centered methods such as learning by doing, then play-away method, direct experience, etc. as the method of teaching. So naturalism is, or naturalistic education is, a sort of liberal educational system. And this one you can see in the case of pragmatism too. Pragmatism believes in democratic setup in educational institutions. They believe that discipline should be determined on the basis of the interaction between the teacher and the children. Though there are some differences, in most of the cases, pragmatism is similar to naturalism in the case of education. And just as naturalism, pragmatism too promotes some learner-centered methods in teaching learning process, such as project method, then learning by doing method, then experimental methods, etc. And you can see that such a sort of liberal attitude towards education in the case of humanism and existentialism too. So if you tell the difference between liberal educational system and conservative educational system in a nutshell, you can tell that conservative educational system is a system of education which is run by following all the traditional aspects of educational system, such as teacher-centered education, teacher-centric methods such as lecture method, then restricted freedom for students, and such things. And liberal educational system is a sort of educational system which promotes changes in the case of educational system as the modern trends in life is there. They believe that there should be freedom for students, there should be professionalism, there should be individual development, and education should be on the basis of the material pleasure of the students. Thank you very much.